To town.
You?
Nothing else?
No, just you. I mean, I'm just happy to be here.
Pleasure to have you.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this new record out. Tell me about it.
Oh, it's about this big. You know, there's a hole in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's called a CD, actually.
Yeah, right. Spent a lot of money on it. What else can I tell you, you know?
I know. Okay, what's it called? Sorry, we're having fun.
The Crimson Idol.
You sell the record. What's it called?
The Crimson Idol.
Now this.
What was that again?
It's called a rock opera.
Yes.
Come on. W.A.S.P does a rock opera.
Well, why not?
Okay, well tell me about it.
Well, it's a story about a boy named Jonathan Steele, and he grows up in a lower middle class household where he is very unhappy. His parents don't want him. I mean, this boy is a mistake of nature. And he thinks that if he can achieve greatness somehow, that they will accept him. And so he discovers music and he runs off and he becomes one of the biggest things the world's ever seen. And he discovers that that's not going to do it. As a matter of fact, when he becomes the superstar, they reject him even harder than he did.
Now, where does the story come from?
Well, I've lived in LA 15 years, and I've seen a lot of this come through there.
The fact that it's a rock opera, is this anything like Tommy or...
Tommy who?
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, I talked to Pete Townsend about this, and he gave me his blessings to do it. But, you guys paying your electric bill?
Now, what do you mean he gave you the blessings?
I told him what the story was. Well, when we did the last album, Headless Children, we did a remake of the Who song, The Real Me. And so when the album went gold, they were playing Radio City Music Hall in New York, and I went back after the show, there was a party, and I gave him his disc. And so I told him that I had this idea for a long time, and I told him the concept of it, and he basically patted me on the back and said, go for it. So I think it's a great idea, you know.
Fantastic.
So as far as that, you know, hey, I feel like I got the blessings of the master. In that sense, maybe musically there's, you know, there's always going to be comparisons just by putting the sheer title of an opera on it. But as far as the story goes, no, there's nothing. I mean, this story's never been told before.
Now, tell me about the video that we're going to see. This is the first video from the album.
This is called The Idol. This is the title track from it. And effectively what's happening here is the live show has been condensed in 4 minutes because the mirror, which is a very integral part of this story, is Jonathan's alter ego. Jonathan Steele is the central character of the Crimson Idol. And the live, you will see this giant mirror behind the band, and we've already filmed the story because there's 9 characters in this story. You'll see this boy's life story going on throughout the entire show.
You filmed the story?
Oh, it's already done.
What do you mean? It's like a movie?
Yeah. It's
and I don't have a part in your movie?
Well, hold on a second.
Cut the interview now. We'll play the video, whatever it's called. W.A.S.P. What's it called?
W.A.S.P. something or other.
No, what's it called?
You're the host.
It's your video.
This is The Idol.
Play it. So the album is called The Crimson Idol. And how long have I known you now? How many years?
40, 50.
Yeah, it's about that. Now, you've changed an awful lot, young man. And I was just wondering if this album, unlike the other ones, doesn't seem to require shock from the audience. Is there something in you that's changed that you no longer need that?
When any new band gets into the business, any band, they are interested in primarily a couple of things.
Girls?
Music is not high on the list. You know, when you first start out, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But after you've been doing it for a while, you start to realize that there is more to life than news, weather, and sports. When you get to a point in your career where you can no longer deny that everything that's coming out of your mouth is affecting somebody some way, somehow, then you've got one of two choices you can make. You can use that great gift either in a good way or in a bad way. But you'll use it one way or the other, whether you want to or not.
You turned into the good witch.
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's just, you know, I'm conscious about what's going on around me.
Do you have any regrets over what W.A.S.P has done in the past?
No, because like I said, any new band that comes up that does, especially what we did, I mean, hey.
You went the whole way.
We went over the top, that's right.
Your own record company banned you.
They did?
Yeah. That's pretty.
Those
That's
sons
pretty.
of really? Now they're telling me the truth. Huh? After you've been there for a while, and you, like I said, you become an elder statesman, it's important to say something. You have to stand for something. You know, if you don't, you're never going to last.
What do you stand for now?
About this high.
Yeah.
You know,
6'4". Yeah.
like I said, we've been given a gift, and I know that this is shocking for you to hear this coming out of me, you know.
Yeah.
But it's true. You reach a point where, especially if you want to be taken seriously as an artist, there comes a time where you have to stop the nonsense. We did an album called Inside Electric Circus. The title of that stood for a lot more than what people understood. We had come from a point where we had done an album and a tour and an album and a tour, and the PMRC in America was digging into my rear end. I was getting death threats every day. I'd been shot at twice. There was only one show in the entire Electric Circus tour where we did not have at least one bomb scare. So it had gotten to a point where it turned into a complete insane asylum. And we said, do we continue on to be like this zoo, this circus, or do we do something where people say, okay, there's actual merit to what they're doing? Because what had happened, people were listening with their eyes instead of their ears. And that was bothering me a lot. And I said, hey, you know, I don't want to continue to live in this fishbowl anymore, so I do what I want to do now.
We're glad to have you on the white side. Good, good. He's a nice guy, isn't he?
White, what's this white side?
Black and white.
I know, this
Pure
is making it out to
good.
be Darth Vader and stuff.
All right. He's actually a bad guy.
I've
but
been
he's
waiting for
good.
you, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Good. This is Mr. Lawless, Blackie to you, and playing live? Bringing your band?
Where?
Here? Canada?
Maybe.
Good. Okay. We're not going to play any more of their videos. Sorry. This is Def
That's
Leppard
not
and
true.
Mr.
Stay
Big.
tuned. I'll be back.
Blackie Lawless, W.A.S.P. here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, this is the new album. It's called The Crimson Idol, and it took about 3 years to make.
Too damn long.
Too damn long?
Yes.
Well, it's a real labor of love, and it's unusual, and it's a rock opera. Now, what prompted you to go ahead with this project?
I get asked one question by the fans over and over again. They say, give me some advice. How do I get from where I'm at to where you're at? And so I got tired of telling them the same thing over and over again. I'd tell them, I say, you got to be willing to pay the price if you want to be in this business. You know, your skin's got to take on the characteristics of alligator hide, you know. And they all go, yeah, I want it. They don't really know. Once they've heard this story, if they think they still want to do it, go for it. Be my guest, you know. Because it's better to try and fail than, you know, and look yourself in the mirror later on down the line and say, well, I didn't do it because I didn't have the guts. But if you think you can live without it, you better seek another line of employment because you ain't going to make it. I've been living in L.A. for 15 years now. I've seen a lot of people come out there and have their lives destroyed because they really don't know what this is about. For me, it's been the best. You know, every dream's come true 1,000 times, but not everybody will have that happen to them.
Well, I mean, this goes from right to beginning. Well, I'm not sure. I don't want to give the ending away. But,
Do you know what the ending is?
Well,
Pretty
more
much?
or less,
Okay.
yes. Well, I mean, I've listened to the album
Probably
and
more
I
than
read the
less, I
lyrics,
guess.
so, you know, but I don't want to tell the whole story. But basically, in song number 4, Chainsaw Charlie murders in the new morgue.
Right.
Now, that's one of the evils of the business as far as you're concerned. You really seriously criticized the LA music industry on that one.
Charlie is supposed to be the president of one of the biggest record companies in the world, and the chainsaw is a symbol of the industry, as is the morgue. I mean, Charlie tells Jonathan in the story, he said that the morgue is the place where all artists will eventually whore themselves to commercialism. It's the place where the music comes to die. So in other words, he's telling this kid, you know, who's young and green, he says, you know, you can take all your ideas of musical integrity and throw them right out the window, because if you're going to do this, you're going to do it my way. And if you don't, you ain't going to make it.
Musically, is this the work that you've appreciate the most so far?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you go into slave labor, you know, for 2.5 years, and you better like it.
You should know it was good. I mean, did you plan on it taking that long?
Had no idea. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. Had the idea since '87, but until you write it, you don't know what's involved, because 9 characters in this story, you don't just slap a name on them and expect that to be Chainsaw Charlie or Dr. Rucht or whoever. You've got to give these people a heart and a mind and a soul and a personality, you know, a general overall makeup, and you have to do that to create strong characters, and I didn't know any of this before I got into it. So I literally opened up a can of worms that I had no idea what was going on.
You've got a new image. I mean, there's a new album. It sounds different from the old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And It's very worked over. It's very stylized as well. What's the new Blackie like?
I did a lot of soul searching and stuff, and one of the conclusions that I came to is that any artist, whether he's an actor, painter, musician, sculptor, whatever, is very, very lucky because we're all in the same boat. We've been given a great gift, and that gift is that, not the talent, the gift is that we stand on a platform, and when we speak, the whole world listens to what we say.
A responsible position.
Well, that's the R word, you know. That's the R word that scares the hell out of everybody when they first get a deal, you know, because you don't want to hear about it. I mean, the only
responsibility.
Well, yeah, the only thing any new band wants to hear about when they first get a record deal is how many times they're going to get late and how many times they're going to get drunk that week. It's true. I mean, let's call a spade, because that's what it's all about. It's all I cared about. After you've been doing it as long as we have, I mean, we're going on 10 years now. You have not just a responsibility, but an obligation to these people. And I say that in essence, referring to this record, because I tell you, when people finally figure out what happens to this boy in the end, he dies, but it's not how he dies, or excuse me, it's not that he dies, it's how he dies.
Right.
And when people figure out what it is, they're going to do backflips over it, but I am prepared for that because it's a very, very important part of the story.
Okay, hold that thought. Why don't we play the video, The Idol, okay. And we'll be right back with Blackie Lawless and more from the Crimson Idol on the Pepsi Power 30. Blackie Lawless on the Pepsi Power 30. Lots more to talk about. Don't you like our nice ventilation system
man, I'll
here?
tell you, this is big, big time showbiz right here.
This is the basement.
Boy, I'll tell you, this is what it's evolved to, huh?
Hey,
now,
we like to keep
that hole in that pipe up there is scaring the hell out of me.
We just don't want to find any big rats down here.
Reminds me of something that happened in Taiwan one time.
Oh, no. Okay, well, you know, another thing about the album, too, is that it is a rock opera. Now, that implies that at some point it may be staged. Do you have any plans about that?
Well, the video that they just saw a while ago is a condensed version of what the entire live show will be. We've already shot this with all the characters that are in this story, and what they will see is this gigantic mirror behind us, which is a focal point of the story, which is Jonathan's alter ego. And they will then see his entire life story going on behind us as we're playing. Like, it's kind of like the old days where there was a silent film with an organ player. Well, it's a silent film with a rock band in front of it. So it's going to be more like going to the movies now instead of going to see a rock band.
There's a big myth in America, and well, Canada as well, that to get ahead in life, you got to screw people over to get there, and then nothing could be further from the truth. You don't have to. If you're talented at what you do, if you're truly talented, you can actually not hurt people. You can help them along the way, and there's so little of that you see in California anymore, or LA. LA's Disneyland, you know, and I've been living out there a long time. I'm leaving there. I'm moving to Arizona. I can't take it anymore because I moved outside of the area, about 30 miles outside, and LA is now moving to me. And I've got horses. I got a little ranch thing, you know, and I just want to go someplace where I don't have to worry about somebody mugging my horses, you know. And when it's over for me, I hope people view me as a sculptor, that he very carefully carved an idea or image and he left it here for people to see. And that'd be the greatest thing that could happen to me. And so because of that, that's the path that I'm on, and that's where I see myself going. I mean, I'm at a point now where I formed a pretty concrete philosophy about the way I want to live my life. And a lot of it, I'm into Indian culture. I mean, you know, like Native American Indian culture. They believe that we belong to the earth and the earth does not belong to us. And that this whole thing is just one giant being. And I believe that, you know, because there's a path everybody should live their life on. And that's the path to becoming a true human being. And that goes back to what we were talking about before about you don't have to hurt anybody or do anything like that. You just live your life. And if you can help somebody and needs some help, then help them.
Blackie Lawless and John Rod from W.A.S.P. Yes, here they are. Welcome, guys.
How you doing? Howdy.
Hey, thanks for coming in. Long trip, yes, for a short time on MTV. Now, you're here, of course, to celebrate the imminent release this Monday of the new album, the new W.A.S.P. album, The Crimson Idol, and sort of the first rock opera of the 90s, is it?
Safe to say.
So why do you want to write a rock opera?
Well, instead of that, I want to know why these little microphones are here. These things are really starting to bother me, man. I'm telling you.
You probably can't.
This reminds me of a bad experience I had in Taiwan one time.
Those little microphones are just in case the other ones you've got attached to you break down and blow up.
Sure they are.
Yes, they are.
Where were we? Sorry about that.
Now, this album, if the guys and girls out there buy the new W.A.S.P album, it's not the normal W.A.S.P stuff, is it? It's the whole story from beginning to end about this guy called Jonathan.
Right.
And you wrote it, and it's not autobiographical, but there are experiences.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, one of the things I had to discover that I'd never done anything like this before, so one of the things I quickly found out was having an idea for a story and writing it are two completely different things.
Yeah, I know about that.
So, you know, you've done it before.
I've tried to do it.
Well, you know, you sit, usually when you make a regular album, you have the luxury of recording the songs, and then after they're done, you create a running order for it. Well, you don't have that luxury when you do this, because when you write the story then is in stone. So you're scoring a film. So the whole thing I'm thinking in the meantime while we're doing this is like, remember the flow, don't screw up whatever you do, because when you get to the end of this and you go to put it all together, if the flow ain't there, you got to tear it all down and tear it down and start all over again. And after 2 years of doing that, that was not a very attractive thought.
Why didn't you go straight to some big film director and say, hey, I got this great idea for this?
Because I'm too damn greedy to give them the money. What do you think? You know, well, originally it started out as being a film. Now that we're done with it, we've shot the whole story on film to this point of what we're going to use on the live show. And once we saw that, then, you know, the wheels started clicking again, and we are pursuing film companies right now as we speak. The video for The Idol is like a small version of what the live show is going to be, because you're going to see this big gigantic mirror behind us, because the mirror plays a very important part of the story. It's the boy's alter ego. So you will see his life story going on behind us. It's like, you know, in the old days when you had a silent film, you had an organ player playing up there. Well, now you got a film with a metal band playing.
And you won't be playing an organ probably, no?
No comment.
No comment. Gotta keep it safe, I guess.
Really, I keep looking at this thing.
I'd love to know your experience in Taiwan.
No.
But the guy we've just seen there on MTV, it just went out as you were talking, he's a great guy. He's Chainsaw Charlie. I can't actually describe how you describe him on the album, because it's not family words, are there, I guess? This Chainsaw Charlie, he's representing the great big moguls of the great big record companies.
Well, you know, he's part of the machine. I mean, we had, I'll be frank with you, we had a very, very bad experience in Los Angeles with somebody out there at the label, and we begged and begged for 3 years to get off the label, and they would not let us go. And so we wrote this song, and they let us go.
That's your revenge.
You know, sure, you know.
It's another personal experience. I know, because I've watched your electronic press kit, and I know that you've said that you actually met someone during your years. There was a fortune teller, and in the album it comes across as the boy meets the gypsy.
Right.
Tell us about that. Gypsy meets the boy.
Right. Dyslexia strikes again. No, I had an experience when I left the New York Dolls. That I went to this party, and I met a girl there, and she asked me if I wanted my fortune told, and I really didn't believe in it. So I says, yeah, all right, whatever, you know. And so she says, you've just come out of something that's relatively important, but there's going to be a great void in your life. You're going to go on to make whatever you've just come out of look like nothing. And I thought, well, yeah, that sounds great on paper, you know, but it's like, let's see it materialize. I'm 19 years old at the time. So, and a week later, I went to another party, and another woman came in and read my fortune. I mean, he was 2 times in 1 week. I know this sounds bizarre, but it's true. Told me the exact same story, almost word for word, and it has come true exactly like they said it would. And I mean, I'm not like a believer in that stuff, but I mean, let's put it this way. At least it's got me wondering at this point, because I mean, 2 people telling you the same exact story, you know, it makes you start thinking maybe there is something to this stuff. You know, at least in my mind, anyway. At least the jury's out on it. You know, I'm not saying no, it doesn't exist.
Cool. Is there a moral to the story then? There always are morals.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for. It may come true.
We're at the Foundations Forum in Burbank, California. We're continuing our coverage here. To my left, to your right, we have Mr. Blackie Lawless from W.A.S.P. How you doing, buddy?
Howdy.
How are you? And I understand that you have a fairly brand new release, The Crimson Idol. And what can you tell us about this particular release? You've been around for a long time now, and you've been kicking out a lot of good stuff in the past. And I understand that this is kind of taking a little turn, a little something different than what you've been doing.
One thing I discovered
doing what I'm doing that, as with anything in life, whether it's a plant or a tree or an animal or a human being, if it does not grow, it dies. And I had reached to a point where, well, let's just say that the same guy that wrote Blind in Texas and I Want to Be Somebody is not the guy that's standing here talking to you right now.
Right. So what track are you most excited about? I mean, obviously it's a complete CD, and I'm sure you're excited about all of it, but is there anything in particular that is moving right now? You know, MTV, are they giving you any support?
Well, the first video is Arena of Pleasure, which is a microcosm of the story. And this whole thing was written from a point of view of literature, point of view of satire, where nothing is really what it appears to be. So the title, Arena of Pleasure, is a euphemism for this fictitious city that he runs away to. It could be LA, New York, London, any place where there's a music scene. Mm-hmm. And he goes there in search of his quest. And
does he find it?
It depends on what the interpretation of finding it means, because this boy comes. See, this is not so much a story of a boy who's in search of seeking fame and fortune. This is a story about physical and mental child abuse.
This is an autobiography, basically. I mean, it could basically fit so many of us out there that are in the music business. I myself, being in the music business, and being in a band, it's definitely not an easy road to hoe, and you're constantly looking for that recognition or that acceptance that maybe you didn't get growing up or whatever. So
all entertainers are insecure. Anybody tells you that they're not, it's a liar.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You get over. Some people will get over a hump. I'm better now than I used to be. I make records for different reasons now than I used to. And I'm not saying that I still don't need it. I don't know how much I need it anymore. But when you ask the question, is it autobiographical? 10%. But people, that's the first question they ask. They say, is this autobiographical? Is it Jim Morrison? Is it Jimi Hendrix? It's all that. It's all them guys, but it's 10,000 more you never heard of.
Get out of the music business, all you young folks out there. Sell your guitars, and either that or pick up the W.A.S.P, the Crimson Idol, and learn about your future. The Crimson Idol by W.A.S.P on Capitol Records. This is Jeff Dyer from Metal Masters, and this is Arena of Pleasure, W.A.S.P. Check it out.
Blackie Lawless, it's been a long time since the last album, Headless Children, came out, and now finally the Crimson Idol. It's been several years. What's been going on?
Well, contrary to popular belief, I feel more like Mark Twain. Rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated, When the Headless tour was over, it was September of '89, and I went to Mexico for about 2 weeks, and I was contemplating my future, what I was going to do with my life and all that stuff. And I've had this idea for the Crimson Idol since 1987, so I thought, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make that record. But before I do that, I'm going to build a state-of-the-art 24-track studio, which I did. It's a place I call Fort Apache. So I did that, and that took 8 months to build the studio. And unless, I mean, you can record in a lot of studios, but until you actually build one of your own, you don't really know what's involved. And it's an enormous undertaking, not to mention the money. And so we did that, and that took 8 months. But in the meantime, while we were doing that, I was writing the story for the Crimson Idol, and that took almost a year to write that.
It's what you could call a sort of a concept album based on, based on the life of a guy called Jonathan, who picks up a guitar, becomes a musician, and all the trials and tribulations and temptations and dangers he encounters as a musician. I mean, you don't really paint a very rosy picture of the music industry.
I did this record to show the fans the darkest side of what this business is really about.
You saw some of the backside of it, I suppose, as a member of the New York Dolls in the 70s.
That was the worst. I mean, there was nothing worse than that. Little did I know, looking back on that, I can't think of, nor have I ever seen, a situation that was like that. I mean, hey, you had 4 other guys at that point who were in love with the idea of trying to become Jim Morrison, and doing their damnedest to succeed, too. They were unbelievable. Made the Sex Pistols look like rank amateurs. I'm 19 years old, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, thinking that the whole industry is like this, and little did I know that was the worst, and then nothing else I would ever see. Everything I saw after that paled by comparison. So I was fortunate in the sense that I got the worst of it out of the way first. In the single Chainsaw Charlie on the cover, there's a chair. It's representative of Charlie's office, because Charlie's supposed to be the president of one of the biggest record companies in the world. And on his chair, there's a little note like you see on somebody's desk, you know, back in 5 minutes, or gone to lunch, something like that. Charlie, there's a little note on his chair, says, "I save souls. I save them for me."
Have you met many Chainsaw Charlies in your career?
I know one specifically is the president of Capitol Records in Los Angeles, you know, and I'm not shy about talking about who it is. I mean, I use some very uncomfortable adjectives to describe this man. I've got a reputation for saying pretty much whatever's on my mind. It's got me in trouble more often than not, and will undoubtedly get me in trouble in the future.
Hi and welcome back to Headbangers Ball. Unfortunately, the weather has deteriorated outside, so we've come backstage and it's time to meet the second of our 6 featured Donington bands. And in fact, I'm joined by Blackie Lawless from W.A.S.P, and it's very nice to see you again on Headbangers Ball. Blackie, how are you?
Shucks, ma'am, thanks.
Now,
just make me blush.
Straight to the Donington questions. You came off stage about an hour ago, and of course you have played here before, but today I think it's safe to say under very different circumstances. How do you feel about W.A.S.P in 1992?
As far as the band now, my philosophies has changed on life. I mean, I've really changed a lot. And the things that I think, I moved from California to Arizona, and I'm very much into Indian culture now and stuff. And it's changed me as a person, so therefore it's going to change the things that I write about. And I've always been a political radical at heart. And the thing that I think that I do best, I mean, the greatest gift that I have is not the talent to sing or play or whatever, it's to communicate to people.
The stage show is obviously very different this time.
Well, it's not, we're not near as animated as we once were, because like I said, people before, they were listening with their eyes and not their ears, and if you want people to hear a message, sometimes you got to take it to them direct. And that's probably the biggest difference between now and then.
Do you feel that there's more pressure on you now that you're the focal point of the band, or is it still important to you that W.A.S.P is seen as a band?
W.A.S.P are an idea, and Johnny Rod, who is the bass player, has been with me since '86, so there's more collaboration going on there than people might think. So I don't really feel that calling me a focal point or anything like that is really being honest, number one, or doing justice to the other people that are there. So if that's the way people want to perceive it, that's fine, but that's not the way we see it.
Do you believe that you have as much to prove today or as you did when W.A.S.P debuted here in 1987?
No, because I was talking about a change in philosophy, and the only thing I got to prove anything to, only person I have to prove anything to is myself, you know, because if I'm going to be my own worst critic, then probably people will be happy with whatever you do after that. You know, it's like if you're really, really critical with yourself. And I tell you, I've done more to put myself into a grave making this record than any other one I'd ever done before. So as I think about it at the end of the day, I go, you know, is it really that important or not? But one thing I do know is that records are like little time capsules, and they should be the best that they can be, because after they're done, you can't change them, and they're going to be there forever, you know. And it, like, when an artist takes a journey, we all take journeys through life, all humans, but when an artist takes that journey, he leaves his works by the roadside as byproducts of what he was, you know. And when he does that, you should be able to look back at his career and say, that's what he was thinking. That's where he was in his life at that point, and I really think that's what records are for. So they should be the best that you can make.
Okay, well let's talk some more about the Crimson Idol, because I haven't really had a chance to talk to you in depth about it until now. We know that it's the story of Jonathan, and people are calling it a concept album. Did you find it easier to write to a concept rather than just like individual songs?
It's really difficult, and I'll tell you why. Because when you do a traditional album, you have the luxury of recording songs and you put them all together, and when they're done you create a running order at the end of that, you know. And if you don't like that running order, you can change it. One of the things that I quickly learned was that when you do something like this, you write the story first, and then you've got music on the side, but you can't really put the music in because you don't know where it's going to go yet. Doing a record like this is compared to a regular album. A regular album is a day at the beach compared to this. This took a lot out of me. One thing I did not know was that when it was over, how it was going to change me. This took me on a journey, a very bizarre journey, one that I'm not sure that I want to repeat again because of what it did to me. When you deal with a depressing subject day in and day out, and that boy became as real to me as you're sitting here in front of me now, it'll do a number on you.
Blackie, on the album you played most of the instruments, you produced it yourself, and you took a great deal of time over it, as we were saying. How did you manage to keep your objectivity throughout that?
That is the single hardest thing to do, is because when you don't have a sounding board, say another producer or something like that, it's really, really tough. So what you do is, which is one of the reasons it took so long to record it. If I would have known what I know now, I could have recorded the record in less than 6 months. I'm the kind of person that, you know, I mean, as with everybody else in this generation, you want everything done yesterday. You know, it's like, let's hurry up and get it done, you know. It's like, but it does not work with this. The time is one thing, but the money that it took to do this, it's just like, I would have been on the soup line after this. It was enormously expensive to do. If I would have known what I know now, I put myself on a 3-year kamikaze course to do it, but I can tell you,
well, basically every single aspect of this album has been like a tremendous learning process for you, hasn't it?
Nothing that I did on this record was like anything I had ever done before. You start calling on every ounce of experience that you've ever garnered or accumulated, and it's tough.
And the moral of the story is, be careful what you wish for. Does that in any way apply to your own life?
Well, yeah, because like so many times, you know, we think we want things and we don't, you know, we finally get it and we go, well, this is what I thought it was going to be, you know, which is this boy's quest is like, he's like standing at the foot of the mountain and he's miserable. He hates his life, hates his parents, hates everything, you know. But he's looking up the mountain, he's thinking to himself, well, if I get up there, I'll be all right, you know. Well, he struggles and he finally gets there. The one thing he doesn't plan on is that once he gets there, he's still miserable. And in reality, he was better off when he was down at the foot of the mountain, because he was miserable there too, but at least he had somewhere to go. Now he's on top and he's still in trouble, and there's only one way out for him.
Which best to listen to the album and find out. Thank you very much for taking time out to talk to me. It's so interesting. I've got 10 more questions, but we are running out of time. We've got Slayer coming up for you on the Headbangers Ball, but right now we are going to see more of W.A.S.P's absolutely blistering live performance here at Donington. Check this out.
So, how do you feel about playing at Donington?
Great. I mean, Donington is the annual Woodstock. It's the biggest thing in the world for the year. It's in America, we have like for American football, they have a thing at the end of the year called the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of times there's more hype 2 weeks prior to the game than the actual game itself, you know. So the game is anticlimactic as opposed to you know, the fanfare that goes on prior to it. And Donington is very much a similar situation. There's more bullshit surrounding the show than the actual show itself, you know.
Okay. So you're really proud to be here?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I mean, the damage that you can do here, like I said, in a span of a week, it'd take you, you know, a whole tour to do around the rest of the world. So, you know, you can minimize your wear and tear on your body, you know.
If you compare it to the last time you were here, what do you think about the lineup? Do you remember the last time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, 50% of the band is different, but 100% of the attitude is different. It's like the band's been born again. You know, it's all my attitudes towards everything are completely different. You know, so I'm a lot happier now than I was. You know, basically because I'm making records for the right reasons now. You know, so it's almost like somebody else did it. You know, in my mind. You know, I remember doing it, but like I said, it's almost like it was somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that old stuff, and as a matter of fact, we still do a lot of that old stuff, but we do it basically for the fans. You know, we don't really do it for ourselves. You know, I'd be more than happy, or I'd be quite content to actually just go out and play new material. But you can't do that, you know, because people have supported you for years and years and years would be very offended if you did that, and I understand it. I mean, I hear bands moan about having to play stuff from the past. Hey, you know, it could be worse. You could be, if you had nobody supporting you, you could go out and play whatever you want, and it really wouldn't make a difference, you know. But if you want people to support you, and people who have supported you for all those years, then you have an obligation to them to do some things for them. And I don't have a problem with that.
We're now joined by Blackie Lawless from W.A.S.P. How did it go for you today?
Terrific.
Yeah, apart from the weather.
Oh, no, the weather was great when we were on. Didn't rain drop. I mean, but I'll tell you what, this bunch is raving out here right now. They're happening.
What about the marquee the other night? How did that go?
Oh, man. They were pulling bricks out of the walls, and I can say, I don't say it because it's us. I've never seen a reaction like that from any band anywhere I've ever. I mean, I stopped singing a couple of times and just started watching. I go, this is a riot going to break out any second. You know, maybe I better get out of here while the getting's good. You know, it was really, really phenomenal.
Was it nice to sort of play an intimate place again?
We've done about 9 shows like that back in America to get ready for these festivals and stuff. And it's, I'll tell you, I said something out here to the audience today. We've been gone for a while, and when you come back, you never, you know, any artist never knows what's really going to happen. You know, you got funny things run through your head, and you're thinking, well, they're going to remember me, whatever, you know. And to come back and watch the dedication of these people, it's unbelievable. I mean, these guys don't forget, you know, I mean, and I don't know about other bands, but I know W.A.S.P bands are some of the most dedicated people, I mean, diehard, I have ever seen in my life. And then I tell you, I'm so fortunate to be in the position that I am, to go away, to make a record, and to come back, and to have it better than it's ever been before. I mean, it's like, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world.
And the album's doing really well as well, isn't it, here as well? What about in America? How's it going?
It's not going to be released in America until after the first year, because we're staggering the releases, because there's a lot of third world markets that are opening up that we will tour this time, and there's just not time to do everything at one time. If we released the album in America when it was released here, by the time we got over there, it wouldn't be happening anymore. You're going to start to see a lot more bands do that, because South America, parts of Asia opening up, there's just not enough time to get to all these places at once.
So what's the better thing about playing an open-air festival for you?
To tell you the truth, I don't see a lot of difference. I mean, I know this sounds naff or incredibly ridiculous, but the biggest difference between the marquee the other night and this show is there's just more people, you know? I mean, it's like, you should react, or any band should react the same way for every show. I don't care if 10 people show up or 100,000, you know? I mean, it's like, you should be the same every time. You should give it everything you got. And if you don't do that, you're ripping people off.
I get asked one question by fans over and over again, and they say, give me some advice. How do I get from where I'm at to where you're at? Because they all think they want to get into the music business. So I thought I would write an album that showed them the absolute worst side of this business, and then if they still want to go for it, they can. I mean, the only thing that I wanted to do was create a product where when people listen to it, they understood what was going on. I never have had a situation where I did a promotional tour that was like the last one was. This one's very, very different because this is like, it's telling the same bedtime story over and over and over again. It's like, you know, telling Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you know, a million times. So it gets a little fatiguing. The last one was much, much easier because it wasn't so much me just answering questions. I would get into conversations with the journalists, and it was very, very enjoyable like that, because Headless Children was an album that was very heavy on philosophy and very, very different than anything we'd done before. So I think that it took a long time for journalists for my message to sink in. I think it took 2 or 3 years, but finally it did. And it seems to be having the desired effect now, because I know, having gone back through all of Europe, which I've just done, the same people I've talked to this time have been much, much more receptive to the Crimson Idol than they were the Headless Children. And it's not because they didn't like the Headless Children. They just found it very strange, an album like Headless Children coming from W.A.S.P. So I think that bridge, or that gap has been bridged at this point. So journalists will better understand in the future if I do something that requires a lot of thought by the listener. At least I hope so. For so long, I had reached a point where I had grown weary of doing the same routine over and over again. When W.A.S.P. first started, from day one, we've been a very misunderstood band. Everyone said, why do you do the big show, and why do you have the woman on the rack and the meat? We did all those things to entertain ourselves, never to entertain an audience. And when we got bored, we grew tired of doing that show, we stopped doing it. And people didn't understand that either. Because once they had gotten used to the idea, they couldn't understand why we didn't continue to do it. So I went and I said, okay, do we continue this traveling insane asylum, this circus? Well, we did the Inside the Electric Circus tour. That record was very appropriately named because that's exactly what had happened to us. We had turned into a circus. And we said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore like this. And I had a lot of thoughts that I was thinking, especially very political thoughts, because I'm very politically active. And so I thought, well, I was in New York, and I had done a lot of interviews, and it was right at the end of the Electric Circus tour. And I was very, very tired of going in and entertaining the journalists, because when I'd go in and talk to journalists, I'd do my Muhammad Ali impersonations, and I'd wave my arms around, and I'd talk loud and stuff like that, And you remember from before, what we would do when we come. And I got tired of doing that. And there's a part of me that still likes to do that. But when you have something serious you want to say, people don't listen to you when you're serious if you're doing all that before. So I'm in New York, and I'm doing this interview with Hit Parader magazine. And I was very, very tired of entertaining journalists. And so I said, okay, I'm going to talk about what exactly is on my mind right now, what's bothering me, what's wrong with the state of America, all that stuff. So I said, okay, I'm not here to make you people laugh. I'm going to say exactly what I think. So I did that, and about 3 months went by, and the Hit Parader magazine people sent me a sampling of letters, of about 100 letters. They said they'd never received that much fan mail from an article ever before. And every article, or every letter said the same thing. It was like, we're glad somebody has finally spoken out and talked about what's wrong in America, instead of just trying to pretend that we don't have problems and thinking that rock and roll has slipped into this mindless type of show business, which it had. So those letters directly influenced me, and I said, there must be a lot of people that are thinking the same way I'm thinking. And I don't want to get... I've been very, very serious for about the last 5 years, and I don't know if I'll always be like that. I guess if the rest of the world was more serious, then I would relax and not be so serious. But I think that it's important that artists who have this great power to influence should say more positive things. I think there are a few bands that are very, very important. I think Queensryche is an important band. I think Iron Maiden's an important band. Metallica's an important band. Those are bands that when they say something, people listen. They're not just singing about, their girlfriend's red dress or something like that. And then rock and roll is supposed to be about revolution and anarchy, and when you see something wrong, you say something about it. And rock and roll has long since not been about that. So I decided that I would make records that directly reflected what I was feeling inside. If more artists, actors, musicians, painters, whatever, actually stood up and did what bands did in the 60s and say what they think, not only would rock and roll be better, but the world would be a better place. More bands need to do that. I think it's very, very important.
Idag ska vi laga smörgåsar och till min hjälp har jag gourmanden och matexperten Blackie Lawless från W.A.S.P. Hello Blackie, how you doing?
Howdy, fine.
Good to see you.
Fine.
Glad you could join my little cooking show here. Good.
What are we going to cook?
Well, as you can see here, I brought some bread. We got some salami, cheese, paprika, onions, lettuce, mayo, tomatoes, the works.
Okay.
Let's do a sandwich, shall we? And
right.
talk a little bit about what you've been doing lately. Maybe you want to start chopping some onions here.
Give me the good job, right?
Yeah, because, you know, your music always brings tears to my eyes. Especially this time, because...
There's going to be a new host after this.
This time, it's really a serious album, this one.
Mm-hmm. Boy, did you find out a while ago.
The Crimson Idol moves away a lot from really what you used to do in the past.
That's right.
It's
well, you know, I spent the last 4 years making a change. You know, we reached a point with the Electric Circus record where and it's funny that record was titled aptly because it had turned into just that. I mean, it had gotten to a point where it had turned into a literal zoo, and we said, are we going to continue to carry on this three-ring circus like this, or are we going to do something of musical merit? And man, this thing is really strong.
Was that a mistake, do you think, the Electric Circus inside that?
I think it was the biggest pile of crap made by any band anywhere in the world. I really do. It was a very tired record made by a very tired band. And I hear people come up to me all the time, they go, well, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. It's a great record, it's a great record. And I go, yeah, well, you know, I'm glad you like it, but from my point of view, and this is really starting to kill me here.
Let's do away with the onions, shall we?
Really? Ooh.
We have other things here.
You know, but from a musical point of view,
instead.
You know, it was time to move on. You know, I wasn't saying the things that I wanted to say. You guys leave the seeds in around here? Or you take them
do what you think is best there. Personally, I take away the seeds, actually.
Okay.
Because they sort of, they're a little crispy, aren't they?
And that thing is got, excuse me.
Let's take the onion and toss it out of here. No more onion. It's gone to meet its maker. Anyway, you decided to do something very serious. I mean, this is more like a concept album, isn't it?
Well, it's an opera. And it's a story about a boy named Jonathan Steele who has a myriad of problems in his life, not one being that he's constantly looking for the acceptance of his parents. And his parents never accept him the way he wants them to. So you have a complex situation going on here where you have a number of problems going on. The main problem is the boy's acceptance by his parents, but also he thinks that if he becomes rich and famous in the music industry, that they'll welcome him home, the prodigal son returns. So he thinks he'll use the music business, and in reality, the music business ends up using him, and it destroys his life.
Is this an autobiography? Right?
It's... Jonathan is... A lot of people that I know in the industry, I took a little out of one personality, a little from another, a little from another, a little from me, and put it all together. I mean, my relationship with my father could not be better. You know, I mean, I've been very, very lucky. And so the relationship that this boy has is not like that whatsoever. I mean, the music industry, everybody thinks when they listen to this record that I've, you know, made a blatant attack on the industry, and I want to, you know, make it known.
Charlie?
Well, yeah, but because Charlie represents something that's very important or inherent in the industry, is that Charlie is like the evil philosopher. And Charlie, he says in this story that he was a lawyer for 25 years before he realized he could screw over more people in the music industry and he ever could in a court of law.
But I think, wasn't it very daring to, I wouldn't say that you named him, but you definitely made a strong you showed the little house in which this record company could have been housed on Vine Street.
No, hey, I got no problems with calling a spade. I asked for 3 years to get off that label. They wouldn't let me go, you know, so, you know, I can't figure out which part of the lyrics it was that finally got his goat at the end of the day, speaking of goats.
No, this is not a goat.
No, not goat. No. It's not that bad, right? Okay.
There you go. let's start off with you're out on tour now also.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something, since the album is very much different, is the tour different too?
Well, the tour is in some... When we first started out in the early days, you know, with all the blood and guts and all that stuff, we were doing a type of theater called psychodrama.
You like mayo in yours?
Too fattening. Dry, thanks. And what we've done is we've incorporated some of the ideas of the psychological point of view of that. And you'd have to just see the show to understand that. It's a type of thing that it's all done with a basic color scheme, and it tells the story pretty much throughout the show. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, it's like I took 3 years to make a record that I've wanted to make for a long time. I mean, I've had this idea since 1987, and it's been really, really fulfilling to me. I may never get a chance to take the time to make another record like this again. I don't see how. I mean, you never just say never, but I don't know how I could take the time to do it again.
Do you feel that the people has received this album the way you intended it? That they understand the whole concept? That they understand the idea behind it?
I wrote it from a point of view where I did not want to create fast food for the ears. I wanted to do something that was going to last for a long, long time. So there, like I said, there's a myriad of different stories going on. There's 3 main themes going on here, but there's also many, many subplots going on at the same time. It took me a year just to write the story before I ever got into the music and the lyrics. So depending on where you are in your life and how old you are and what you're thinking at that point will determine exactly what you're going to see when you listen to this record. You go back and listen to it 3, 5 years from now, you're going to see something altogether different. You're going to go, I never saw this before, because there's a story or a narration that goes with the album. You can't understand the album without the story, and you can't understand the story without the album.
But that's applied with the CD.
That's right, and they cross-reference each other. But also in the lyrics tells you who's talking and saying what at that particular point. So depending on whose viewpoint you're looking at the story from is going to determine what you see in the record.
Mm-hmm. Let's listen to some of the stuff we're actually talking about here.
Okay.
So there you go. Just look into the camera and introduce the next video.
This is from the Crimson Idol. This is the title track. This is The Idol.
Det var alltså W.A.S.P med The Idol. Quite dark and dooming, gloomy. It's not too much illumination there on the stage.
Well, it's really reflects what's going on in this boy's life. This kid starts out and he thinks that, well, he's at the bottom of the mountain looking up, and he's miserable. And he thinks he's looking up at the top of the mountain. He thinks, well, if I get there, you know, everything's going to be rosy. Well, he gets to the top of the mountain, and he realizes that when he gets there, he was better off on the bottom of the mountain than he was when he was on the top, because when he was on the bottom of the mountain, he was miserable, but at least he had somewhere to go. Rock and roll should be, true rock and roll should be about anarchy and revolution, and when you see something wrong, you should say something about it. And if you can say anything or do anything to help people's lives, and to keep them from making mistakes when they don't really know what they want to get into, then that's what I'm supposed to do. I mean, rock and roll's a great thing. You can have a great time with it, but, you know, it's like the ocean. If you don't respect it, it will take your life. And I've had a lot of friends that I've lost, and there's really no need for that, because I think, see, Hollywood especially perpetuates this great myth, and the myth is glamour. And in reality, 98% of this is work, 2% is glamour. And I don't give a shit about that 2% glamour anyway. I mean, I've changed a lot in the last few years, and my priorities are very, very different now from where they used to be. And like I said, I know why I've been put on this earth, and that is to communicate to people.
Guess who I've tracked down here at the Iron Maiden album launch party in London? None other than Blackie Lawless of W.A.S.P. Hi, Blackie, you having a good time?
Yeah, I can't complain.
Now, you've got a new album coming out, The Crimson Idol, which is a concept album. Very briefly, could you tell us a little bit about the concept?
Well, it's a story about a boy named Jonathan Steele, who is the central character to the story. And he basically has a really, really terrible home life. He's a victim of child abuse, both physical and mental. And he runs away from home, he discovers music, and he ends up being one of the biggest things the world's ever seen. And he discovers that it's not everything it's cracked up to be, and the moral of the story is be careful what you wish for, it may come true.
Absolutely. Now, why did it take you such a long time to come back with this album?
Because I'm really, really slow. You'd have to understand the nuts and bolts of what goes into something like that. It just takes a really, really long time. And besides, I didn't have a band really to do it with. And like in a traditional record, you have, you know, a running order. You decide later. With this, running order is written in stone. So basically, you put one block after the other.
Okay, well, thanks very much for talking to us at the Iron Maiden party. No doubt, Headbangers Ball in America and Europe will be catching up with you again very soon.
We've managed to find a little international flavour down here at the show tonight because we've got three young ladies from all different countries and they've all got questions to ask to Mr. Blackie Lawless here. Now then, what's your name, my dear?
My name's Andy, and...
Where are you from?
I'm from Austria.
Now then, you must have a good question for
Yeah,
Blackie.
I've got a very good question because it was quite a surprise for me to find you here today. So what brought you here? Are you doing a solo project forever now, or are you still gonna wasping around, or...
Well, basically, I came here to see you. So you didn't know that, but I did.
No, that's lovely. That's lovely.
No, I'm here to do promotion.
Uh-huh. You're
just
promoting yourself?
Well, I forgot my pom-poms. I'm here cheerleading, basically, is what it boils down to.
All right, all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll pass you back.
Yeah, pass me on now. What's your name, my dear?
My name is Isabella.
And you're from Milan, aren't you?
Yeah,
so I can tell by the eyes, you see. Now, you must have a good question for Blackie.
Yeah. So, I heard you're going to Milan next week.
Yes, I am.
So, yeah, what do you think of Italian towns?
Well, the reason I'm going there because you can't get decent spaghetti in Los Angeles, so I figured I'd go there.
You like Italian food?
Right. I like the Italian women more than the food, but I'll take the food if that's all I can get.
Now, I know you've seen Blackie performing in Milan, haven't you? How many years ago was that?
I was 14. It was about 7 years ago.
I didn't know you then, though.
Yeah,
Tell them that I did.
But I bet you remember me. Yeah?
No. It was your sister.
How popular is Blackie in Italy?
Oh, it's really popular. I remember the show. There were so many people. It was packed up, wasn't it?
It was packed up. That's right.
It was definitely.
And we were packed up, ready to go.
Yanni, what's your name, my dear?
My name's Liz. I play drums with this lot in Original Sin.
Oh, she had to get the
commercial
in. She got the plug in. Now, what's your question?
We've been around a long time. We've heard them all.
I don't come from anywhere exotic because I live here in England.
So what's your question for Blackie?
And I want to know, when are you playing here next? Because we want to come and see you. Because W.A.S.P was always my favourite band.
What, it isn't anymore?
They're not around anymore. How can you like something that doesn't exist?
What the hell am I right here, right now? What am I, chopped liver? You know, like...
I'm a vegetarian. That bit was disgusting.
So, go on, when are you going to be around and play? That's what she wants to know.
August 22nd. We're doing a little small out-of-the-way place up here called Donington.
Lennon, you must have another question before we round things up here.
Yeah, is there going to be any blood in the future?
If you come around, there might be.
Yeah, I can be really bad, you know. You better watch out.
That's right.
Well, as you can see, I mean, Blackie, he's a very popular man with the ladies all over Europe.
しかしそんだけね100回聞いてわかるかどうかね非常に複雑なストーリーこれよく映画だと構想10年実現までに50年とかいろいろありますけどもこれは構想何年ですかこれ
How long did it take you to come up with this concept because it seems to be very complex
Too damn long.
長すぎるぐらいですね
Really, I've had this story idea since '87, but it took a year to write the story once I started.
先ほどお話しましたようにアイデアというのは87年から温めてたわけですけれども、このストーリーを実際に書くという作業に1年間かかりました。
ということは僕2年前ですか1年半前に LA の空港でねブラッキーと会いまして一緒の V という飛行機に乗ってロンドンまで行った時に一生懸命物書きしてたんですけどあれこのストーリーを一部書いてたんですねやっぱり。
About a year and a half or 2 years ago when you met Mas on a plane, you know, you were busy writing. Is it what you were writing?
Well, originally I was going to write the story about him, but I thought I'd get sued.
本当は伊藤さんのことを書こうと思ったらしいんですけれども訴えられるといけないのでやめておこうかなと思いまして
本当やりそうだからなこいつはな怖いわな訳さないでくださいよはいということで
Whoa, what did he say? I know he's
I'll tell you later
smart shit, right?
さあ曲をねやっていただけませんけどこれはねThe Idol これはイギリスの第2弾シングルということになりますか
The it going to be your second single?
Yeah.
The Idol, the next song you're going to play.
Remind him that I'm bigger than he is.
先ほどの話ですけど、僕のが大きいの忘れないでくださいね。
なるほどね。OK、わかりました。怖いんで、そろそろ、それでは曲に行ってもらいましょう。Are you ready, Blackie?
I'm ready.
Alright, here we go.
I was born ready.
Alright.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. How are you? Fine?
Fine. Sweaty.
Transpirado está.
Bueno, pero tranquilo, acostumbrado a lo que fue su trabajo sobre el escenario, todo eso está como
Nice
tranquilo.
and calm after all the work you've done on stage, right?
Oh, no, it's just these lights, you know, it's a little bit...
No, son las luces que dan mucho calor.
Recién nos habían dicho que vos tenías mal carácter, nos dijeron, para dar notas es medio bromado, ¿es cierto eso?
They told us you were a little moody, that it was very hard to get an interview from you. That's
Oh,
all?
no, that's... Hey, listen, I've been out for 3 months now. I've done over 500 interviews on this tour.
Bueno, no es así. Hace 3 meses que estoy de gira y yo he dado más de 500 entrevistas.
Blackie, una vez que se disolvió la agrupación estaba W.A.S.P, ¿es posible que vuelvan a tocar todos juntos?
W.A.S.P broke up. Is it possible that you're going to get back together?
Well, it's important for people to understand that the band has never really broken up. The bass player, Johnny Rod, and myself are still together. It's just the guitar player and the drummer that we replaced. So W.A.S.P are still very much a band.
Bueno, es importante que la gente entienda que W.A.S.P nunca se separó, sino que el bajista y yo seguimos en el grupo. Así que no se separó. Vamos a seguir trabajando.
¿Cómo le va esa ópera rock? ¿Por qué la hizo? ¿Tenía ganas de hacerla hacía mucho tiempo?
Well, what about your opera rock? Did you feel like doing it for a long time?
Well, yeah, it's an idea I've had since about 1987, but I get asked one question by the fans over and over again. They say, give me some advice. How do I get from where I'm at to where you're at? So I would tell them the same thing over and over again. So you have to really want this, but I know that they don't understand when I say that. So I thought, I'm going to paint them a picture of the worst possible side of this business. And then if they think they still want to do it, go for it.
Bueno, desde 1987 que él está pensando hacer en esta ópera rock. Y siempre los fans le preguntan, ¿cómo hiciste para llegar hasta donde estás ahora? Y le dice, uno tiene que realmente amar lo que está haciendo. Y para probarlo, yo voy a demostrarlo a través de la ópera rock y mostrarles que sí, que con amor esto se puede llegar.
Blackie, decirle muchísimas gracias por haber estado aquí en Hacerlo por mí y que lo esperamos con toda su banda algún día que venga a tocar algún estadio aquí en Buenos Aires. Blackie Lawless estuvo aquí en Hacerlo por mí, se va con la gente a saludarle. ¡Le revolvió la guitarra! ¡Wow, man!